Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today you're checking out a Stamina Nightblade PvP build. This is the Hunter build update for the Elsweyr chapter in the Elder Scrolls Online. So if you haven't seen this build before, it's pretty unique in that it focuses a lot on roll dodging to execute your burst combo. Roll dodging on this build as a Wood Elf, we get increased penetration, increased speed. We have a knockdown, stun, and a root, basically all in one move, so it's pretty fun if you do it the right way. So we'll be going over some minor tweaks to the build for the Elsweyr chapter, as well as taking a look at some upcoming skill changes for the Scalebreaker DLC. Let's jump right into it. All right, everybody, back on our Stamina Nightblade Hunter build. This build is definitely a lot of fun to play. Let's jump into the stats quickly here. Buff up. And usual disclaimers though, I'm not completely min-maxed on this build yet. Your stats can improve with things like max level Undaunted. Also keep in mind, this is more of a proc set niche kind of build. It doesn't build for pure weapon damage. So we have about 15k max magicka, 20k health. In PvP, that'll jump up to about 23, 24k. And then we have 34k max stamina. Our stamina recovery does go up with our potion here. Looking at about 1800, we also have some skills that give us increased stamina recovery. Weapon damage with rally is sitting at 3500. With our back bar berserker glyph, this goes well over 4k. Weapon crit sitting at about 40%. And then our physical and spell resist are up most of the time through either cloak or surprise attack, sitting at about 17k spell resist, 20k physical resist, 2.1 crit resist. Have put all my points here, 64 points into max stamina, no surprise. I am a stage 2 vampire on the build, and that's for mostly the recovery. You get an extra 10% spell and magic recovery while being stage 2 vampire, which I think is very good for the Nightblade playstyle. We have extra mitigation through some of our passives, as well as major evasion, so I don't feel like the extra damage you take is too much pressure. Using the purple tri-stat food on this build, that's for the extra max magicka. This lets us cloak more. If you don't find yourself needing to cloak that much, you can swap this out for something with stamina recovery, like Dubious, for example, would be another good option here. I'm using the Warrior Mundus, and that's just to get my weapon damage at that baseline of about 4k self-buffed. If you are running more infused jewelry, infused weapon damage glyphs, you can swap this out for the Lover Mundus. Lover Mundus will give you more penetration, which is going to help with our proc sets. So I definitely recommend Warrior or the Lover. For the potion here, I am using Essence of Weapon Critical. This gives us our Major Savagery buff, 10% weapon crit, which we cannot get any other way with the sets and skills that we're using. This also gives you a nice little burst heal and access to stamina and stamina recovery. So this is a great potion to have on your Stamina Nightblade. You can also use tripods for that extra magicka and magicka recovery. Last but not least, let's talk about the race for the build. This helps us close the gap on our enemy, helps us do more damage, so it's really great passive. Then the Endurance passive gives us a juicy 258 stamina recovery. This means you can run pure weapon damage glyphs on your jewelry and still have very nice sustain. And then we do get the 2000 max stamina, poison resistance, immune to the poison status effect. So normally I say, pick the race that you want, pick the race that you enjoy for your build, but if you want to play this build exactly as it's set up, then Wood Elf is definitely the way to go for this one. All right, let's explain the gear sets next, which these have not really changed since the initial build video. Starting off with 5 pieces, Hide of Morahas. This is an interesting proc set. It's actually a heavy armor set, but I'm using this with my weapon here on the front bar. So the bonuses here, 2-piece maximum health, 3-piece physical resistance, 4-piece max stamina, and then for the 5-piece, when you roll dodge through an enemy, you deal physical damage, and it's a knockdown stun for 3 seconds. So the fun thing about this is you can actually roll dodge through multiple enemies at once. It's not a single target stun, it's actually an AoE stun based on your roll dodge. Now it does a little bit of physical damage, but we're really just using it for the stun and comboing this with our other sets and abilities. This is a tradable set, so you can get this pretty cheaply in Guild Traders. You can also pick it up from the Gold Coast. It drops in that zone. not very hard to get. So on your front bar, I definitely recommend a maul. This is our two-hander, and it does give us increased. So the maul here gives us 2 pieces, and then I am running the heavy chest and heavy legs. Since it is a heavy armor set, this will give me the most resistances possible for this build. So these are my 2 heavy pieces, and then the rest I'm running medium. So it is a 5 medium, 2 heavy setup. So we've got 2 for the weapon, 2 for the chest and the legs, and then the last one is just going to be our necklace. Second 5-piece set that we're using is going to be Eternal Hunt. This gives us a good bit of max stamina and then stamina recovery, 2 bonuses there. Then when we use our roll dodge again, we leave behind a rune that detonates on the ground, gives us about 9k poison damage, and immobilizes them for 1.5 seconds. So this is more damage and a root as well, making them stuck in place so we can just finish them off. Now this is a crafted set. I believe it's 9 traits to craft this. So I am using 3 pieces on the body here and 2 pieces of jewelry. So I have the medium boots, medium hands, medium waist, and then 2 rings here. Again, I haven't improved these all the way yet. I'm using weapon damage here with Robust, and then I have a weapon damage with Infused. So that's our other 5-piece set. And then just to finish it off, we're going to run Celine's as the monster helm. This gives us a nice 1-piece max stamina bonus. And then for the 2-piece, when we deal direct melee damage, we call a Primal Spirit. Deals about 15k physical damage there. This is a very reliable source of damage, and since our enemy is going to be both rooted and stunned at the same time, you have a very high probability of getting this proc to go off on this build. So I think those 3 sets just work together really nicely. It's the perfect combo just for a fun play style, I think. As far as the enchants, I'm using all max stamina, except for I do have 1 tri-stat enchant. Everything else max stamina. And then a little bit different on this build, since we are doing so much roll dodge, I am running mostly well-fitted traits. I believe I have 5, I have 4 well-fitted and 2 impenetrable. You can even go up to 5 well-fitted traits if you want. And that'll be very good, especially if you're playing in battlegrounds. That'll just let you roll dodge a lot without losing much stamina at all. So then, if you've never seen these roll dodge sets, let me show you what it looks like. First, the Eternal Hunt set gives you the poison rune on the ground. And again, that's a root and it does about 9k damage. And then Morahas is our stun, so all you have to do is roll dodge through the target. And you can see that procs the stun. I procced my root and my bear at the same time. So that's kind of what the sets look like and how they work together. And then I almost forgot the bow here. Back bar, we're using the infused bow. Very important to proc that Berserker enchant. Gives us over 500 weapon damage, fully buffed. And you don't need the Morahas bow. You can actually run any bow that you want on the back bar. The only thing that's important is that it is infused. So I have the Spriggan's bow right now. It gives me a little bit of extra stamina. You can also obviously do the Master's bow if you have access to that for even more weapon damage on your target. Okay, let's talk about the skills next, which have changed slightly, I would say, since the previous patch. So coming up on our 2-hand bar for the Execute ability, I'm playing around with doing Executioner instead of Killer's Blade here. The reason why is that Executioner is actually getting a pretty nice buff coming up in the Scalebreaker DLC. This is going to scale up to 400% bonus damage. The other reasons why I like Executioner as my Execute is it actually costs less than Killer's Blade, and it also scales more reliably, because you can see this starts scaling at 50% health or less. And then if I wanted to do Killer's Blade, which is also a good skill, but Killer's Blade only scales at 25% health or less. So for me, playing on console, sometimes it's hard to even tell if an enemy is 25% health or less, and I will hit them at like 26 or 28% health, and I'll get 0 bonus damage, which is a problem. It's a waste of resources, in my opinion. The nice thing again about Executioner is it does that scaling below 50% health. So it is nice. It does more execute damage, and again, it costs less. If you like Killer's Blade, that's fine too. It actually gives you some health for getting a kill. You'll get like a little bit of health back here, about 4k health. And then you also get some stamina back from our passive. So it's not bad. You can choose to run either one, but I think I definitely will be switching out to Executioner, especially when Scale Breaker hits. Next up, we got our Gap Closer, which is going to be Ambush. And this did get a nice buff in the Elsweyr chapter. It now gives us minor vulnerability, making our enemy take 8% more damage. That means like our Selene is going to do more damage. Our Poison Rune from Eternal Hunt's going to do more damage. Then all of our follow-up damage as well is going to get buffed. Gives us the Empower also on light attack, so it's very good. It also gets you up nice and close on an enemy, which is what you can use to initiate your combo. Just ambush into them and then roll dodge through. You'll proc the root, you'll proc the stun, and then you can finish them off from there. Next up, I'm playing around also with adding Shuffle to the build. Shuffle is going to be buffed as well. In the Scalebreaker DLC, it's going to get a nice cost reduction, and I believe up to 6 or 7 seconds of snare immunity and root immunity, which is going to be really nice for this build, you guys. I used to run Shadow Image for kind of the escape skill on this build, and it's really buggy, number one. But I think with all the mitigation that we have now as a Nightblade, it just makes more sense to run Shuffle. So you can pop this for the immunity and then go into your ambush and your kill combo, and then you'll still have plenty of time left on your immunity where you can get out. Surprise attack is going to be our main spammable still. We did lose Fracture on the build, but like I mentioned, you could run like the Lover Mundus to get pretty close to that value, and this does shred 5% of their armor if you attack from behind, which you will be doing pretty much every time on this build. It does nice damage. It also procs our shadow passives, which you cannot pass up. That's giving us our major ward and major resolve. So I am still using it despite the lack of Fracture this patch. Then I'm using Rally for our burst heal. This also gives us major brutality, which means we can free up a slot on our potion. Now the heal over time will be going away. I don't think that's a super big deal because we are running Vigor on the back bar anyways. We're using this mostly for the burst heal. Then our ultimate, of course, is still going to be in Cap Strike. I like this because it lets you do 20% more damage for 6 seconds. So if you do this right after you ambush into a target, all of your damage is then increased for those 6 seconds. So it's very nice. It also gives you extra Magicka and Stamina Sustain, having this slotted on the front bar. I usually do not cast it with 120 ultimate or more. I have not been a big fan of the silence effect on this, so I think you're better off just casting it for the 70 ultimate. It does enough already at that point. Swapping to our back bar now, this is our bow. We're using this mainly for poison injection, and on our fuse bow, this also helps to proc our Berserker enchant, gives us 500 more weapon damage every 5 seconds. Also, if you happen to have the Master's Bow, it's going to do even more damage than that. This adds a lot of weapon damage to your build. Obviously, it's also an execute, so you're going to pop this first before you gap close, before you pull off your combo, and it's going to increase all your damage as well as give you that execute potential. So very nice. Next up, we've got Resolving Vigor. We've got to have this. It's our back bar heal. Just does very nice heal over time. It's also getting that buff in the Scalebreaker DLC, so that's something you can look forward to. I am using Shadowy Disguise on the back bar next for our Cloak. This gives you a guaranteed critical strike, and you can do some interesting combos with Cloak into, let's say, Surprise Attack. Surprise Attack will give you a stun if you engage that from Cloak, so that's another interesting combo you can pull off on the build. But mostly this is for survivability. This is for getting out of trouble. We have enough speed where we can kind of just run away from a fight, but then we want to put our Cloak back on so nobody can target us after that. You can also pop your Vigor and then go into Cloak to get that healing off if you need it. Next up, we got Leeching Strikes. This is our sustain buff. It also gives us a heal. So your light and heavy attacks heal you for 1600 health. Also restore 100 stamina for 20 seconds, and then we get about 4k stamina back when the effect ends. Note too that you can end this early. You can actually recast this, let's say after maybe 10 seconds. You won't get the full 4k stamina, but you'll get some stamina back, and it can be helpful if you're totally out of stamina. You can pop this early instead of waiting the full 20 seconds to get some stamina back. Got Relentless Focus here on the back bar. This is giving us extra damage mitigation since the Elsweyr chapter was released. This gives us up to 15% damage mitigation actually at 5 stacks of this buff. So basically you'll pop this, you'll hit 5 light attacks with your bow, and then your damage mitigation goes way up. Now it is getting bumped down a little bit. I believe it's going to be 10% in the Scalebreaker DLC, but that's still nice. This, with our buff from Shuffle, makes us actually very, very survivable in a medium armor setup. So I do like the defensive bonus to this skill. Now obviously this skill is also offensive. You can use it to proc Assassin's Scourge, gives you a very big burst of damage. You can even combine this with your Shadowy Disguise on the back bar for a guaranteed crit on your bow proc. So that is very nice, just to either burst somebody down or even just to burst somebody up front before you gap close and stun them. Either way, it's a great ability to have. Always have this buff active, and then make sure you're light attacking on your bow to keep the stacks up as much as possible. Then for our ultimate here, you could run different things. You could use the Psijic Order Undo ultimate. You could also use the bow ultimate if you want a little bit extra burst damage. But I like the heal here. This is not only a self heal, it's a very nice group heal. So if you're playing a lot in Battlegrounds, you can pop this and basically keep your whole group alive. It's a very good heal and low cost. And then last but not least here, I just want to go over a full combo if I can, so you can kind of see how that works. So buff up on your back bar. Make sure Rally, Shuffle are active, and then we're going to start with a Poison Injection. That's to proc our weapon damage into the ambush. From there, you can roll dodge. Let me just block for a second. Roll dodge. That's going to stun and proc our Immobilize. You can see the target's almost dead. At that point, Executioner until they go down. If they have more health, let's say it's a high health target, you can then hit your in cap at that point and then go into Executioner. So it's a pretty simple combo and definitely fun if you can pull it off. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up the Stamina Nightblade PvP build update for the Hunter build for the Elsweyr chapter. If you guys enjoyed this video, as always, I would appreciate it if you crush that like button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of the Stamina Nightblade in the Elsweyr chapter and even looking ahead at Scalebreaker. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get notified as soon as new videos come out here on the channel. I'll leave you guys with some footage here of the build in PvP Battlegrounds. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you around in the next video.